Hello and welcome, friend. My name is Trisha, and I recently ended my marriage of 18 years. As a newly single, middle aged person in a small Midwestern community, I found myself adrift, unsure of what to do with all of the time and energy now much more freely available to me. And these questions kept popping into the back of my mind whenever I was conversing with friends and family. But what they all boiled down to is this: how do you single? So I created this podcast to dive into this topic, interviewing friends and family, seeking connection, and asking them to share the gems of wisdom they've gained along their journeys. So I decided to start asking people to share the gems of wisdom they've gained along their journeys. My guest for this episode is Ramiro Lynch, who I met in the online solo community found at petermcgraw.org/contact. Ramiro works in tech, but has occasionally found a creative outlet as a stand-up comedian. He is also a guest that has been married and experienced the whole relationship escalator, which is somewhat rare for this podcast thus far. I think you'll appreciate his perspective. So let's get to it.
I'm an Argentinian, so that's something about me. I grew up in Argentina. In my 20s, I was going to law school and working for a logistics company in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I wanted to have an international experience, and more than any other country, I wanted to go to the States when I was in my 20s, and basically through quote unquote hard work and perseverance, I guess. I asked my company to transfer me to the States basically. And I was lucky more than anything. I was lucky that I found the right person to ask. So basically, long story short, at 25 years old, and now I'm 50. So just for perspective, at 25, I moved to the States. But I didn't move by myself. I was married at the time. I got married when I was 21, so pretty young. And basically, I will fast forward to 35 years old, which is when I separated my wife. My wife at the time, she decided to not be married with me anymore. But I guess these things to me sometimes are sometimes you sabotage relationships. I feel like sometimes one person makes the decision to end the relationship. It's more both didn't really want to be in the relationship. But basically at 35, I was single again. So in terms of what I do for a living, I still work for that company that I work for in Argentina. So it's a long career, part of it in Argentina and now in the States. For the actual things that I do, I develop software for this company. So write code, which is something that I took up after the pandemic, because before in Argentina I studied to be a lawyer. I was going to be a lawyer, and I transitioned that into a regulatory compliance position in the States. But after the pandemic, I was so tired of doing the same thing. So I transitioned into software development kind of late in my career. But I was lucky that they gave me the opportunity, and I am happy because I get to work for a global team within my company. I speak Spanish as a first language, and I work with people that speak Spanish as a first language, but also people in Portugal, Mexico, and here in the States. So yeah, I'm happy as far as my professional life. I want to continue growing, but yeah, that's and as far as things that I enjoy doing, I for a long time I was a comedian, as as a side thing, but I did comedy in all kinds of environments, sometimes getting paid, sometimes not getting paid, but stand-up comedy. So that's something that I did for 10 years or a little bit more, but I became a little, sour, because it takes so much energy out of my day and I wanted to do something different. So I recently I always liked music, because I even had bands growing up. I played the guitar and always enjoyed music, and I always felt the music in my body. That's the thing. I always felt the movement part. So long story short, I started taking salsa classes and bachata classes and cumbia, mostly for the cumbia part, because I like cumbia as the genre of music. but then I kind of fell in love with salsa. I always liked, and I had taken classes before. So it's basically like I like the word vocabulary because it's like the alphabet, kind of when you learn a different language. And movement is, I didn't really know, but it's the moves are actually things that you're saying with your body. And that's super interesting to me that you can like talk through movement and communicate. My relationship to my professional job with software is I come into it more as a how can I help this how can I make a larger contribution to what I'm doing? Because I felt like what I was doing I wasn't contributing really. I was more like stopping, because regulations stop things, like you're stopping movement. And I feel like in coding you're helping. That's how I feel. Like I'm fixing this issue. Like I'm fixing a bug and stuff. So that's how I feel good about that. Even the small thing, especially you also have that background. So you understand that when you fix something, it gives you a sense of accomplishment. Even if nobody is looking, you fix something. So I feel like I struggle sometimes with connection. I feel like I've always been kind of more a solitary type of guy where I always had like a internal life, like in my brain. I do feel like sometimes I need connection. That's kind of the thing where when I need connection with others, that's when I struggle because in the best times when I deal with them in in an optimal way, I reach out to someone by text. But I don't like to feel weak. I don't like to feel vulnerable. But on the other hand, this is where dancing helps me because sometimes even when I don't want to, sometimes I do things that I don't really want to do at the time, but they help me. For example, at the time before going to dance, half an hour before, I dread taking the train. I dread the prep, but at the time when I'm dancing, when I'm connecting with someone, it's a real connection. And honestly, this is sounds not weird. The word is sounds like I'm just reciting something that I read in a romantic book, but I do feel like it's like when you dance with someone for 2 minutes, I kind of fall in love with that person almost. It's so strange. Wait, in the best times, sometimes you don't, but yeah. One thing that you learn is that it doesn't really matter your moves so much. Like if you're really extremely good dancer, doesn't matter as much as if you're connected with someone because you can be a really good dancer. You have like a vocabulary in your moves and your shoulders move exactly the way you want them to. But if you are not connecting with the other person, neither you nor the other person are feeling great. So that's one thing that I try to like ask for, like, what's your name? And, not just to make the moment less awkward, I guess. I mean, break the ice. At my best, I am saying, "Hey, my name is Ramiro. What's your name?" And then basically looking at the other person's eyes is a form of connection, which I when I was less experienced, maybe I would avoid eye contact because I felt awkward. I felt like more in my head, like, am I doing the right thing here? Am I doing this? Am I following the beat or am I impressing this other person that is looking at me? Not just this girl, but the other girl that was like, someone, or even the guys, it doesn't matter. That I used to be super shy, I guess. So I'm still probably shy in some ways, but that's something that you kind of work on. Basically, what I'm saying is everybody, for the most part, can learn to ask someone to dance. That's how I feel about that. Other parts that I enjoy about being single, okay, in addition to me having my internal dialogue. Yeah, that's kind of my challenge is my relationship with being single. I guess I'm trying to figure it out right now because for a long time I've been in relationships and I chased relationships forever. So I'm trying to see what it feels like not chasing relationships. For some periods of time, I chased comedy as a kind of a relationship was my friends in the comedy scene. When I would go out almost every night, or I had goals like I'm going out 4 times a week. And those times I felt I did it as a way to quote unquote not get in trouble because I was kind of chasing the next relationship for some time. So I'm trying to mature, I guess. I have some friends, and yeah, I'm very happy right now in terms of how I feel about being I guess single is the word. But yeah, for a long time I believed in what happens to me is that I start listening to romantic songs, and like I really believe them. I really believe the romantic things. But now I feel like I'm okay with being on my own because I don't really chase the slow songs anymore in my Spotify. I'm going into some other kinds of music. That's when I feel like, okay, I'm doing better. For some time until recently, I was in a 4-year relationship that I ended about a year and a half ago. And after that, I was kind of chasing another relationship. And I made myself the movie of a romantic relationship. I dated a girl, and maybe I did it for the comedy because I needed material. But I dated a girl that I found on Tinder while swiping. You can buy a membership that allows you to swipe in any country. So it's kind of interesting. And so I was swiping back home for a Argentinian girl. Basically, well, I paid her for the flight ticket. Well, it was a few months that we kind of courted over long distance, and then spent a week here in Chicago, and we did all the romantic like movie things that you would do, and kind of really fell in love. But I just made the whole thing in in my brain. I kind of invented it. It was a good time. And then, yeah, went to Argentina and then met with the same girl. It was kind of tough. But now I'm not kind of chasing. That's what which is strange for me that I'm not doing that because like in my generation, we grew up with this thing of trying to pick up a girl. You were doing the work. You were, I don't know, trying to get something. You know, so yeah, I feel like I have like short-term memory for bad, like negative things in my life. I feel like honestly, I feel so grateful that I don't feel like I had problems. Most of the reason why I don't feel that way is because I think for the most part I try to make good decisions. Even getting married at 21, I feel like that was the right decision at the time. That you could say, hey, maybe you lost time, but no, I don't feel that way. I'm thinking more like in terms of growing up. I feel like those were the most intense, like when I was a teenager, like teenage years, and then you have like problems because I didn't have any autonomy when you're a kid. So things really impact you so much. But what would I say? That it gets a lot gets better, I guess. That's what it gets it gets better as you grow. I mean, honestly, I experienced so many good things in my life. This is something that, in terms of looking back at the kid or the guy that I was at 18 years old, if that guy was looking at me now, he would be proud. Like he would be happy. Okay, this he did a lot of stuff and he's doing well. I like to think that at 18, you think the 50-year-old version of me would be like a boring version. But no, the 50-year-old version goes on bike rides on Sundays, talks to girls that he likes, or goes on dates or travel. He has a lot of autonomy. So no, I'm so happy. I think for a long time, maybe this helped me is more like from a resiliency point of view that I read about how like we don't need a lot to be happy. That's kind of where I come from. So even married people can be happy. I feel like anyone can be happy. So basically we just need food and a roof over our heads. That's how I feel. That it's what do they say, that it's kind of an internal job, happiness. So I wouldn't like prescribe anything in terms of you should follow my path, in terms of you should be married or you shouldn't be married or should be solo. But for me, this is the my version of happiness. But for other people, maybe having kids. So I don't want to prescribe, but maybe one author in Spanish that I like is the psychologist Rafael Santandreu, that has a lot of books about happiness, and he is basically comes from Buddhism, and just the ideas that you don't need a lot to be happy. Even people in prison can be happy. And also, I remember, nuns are like, I think there are studies where they found that they are sometimes the happiest people that are single their whole lives, and that's kind of true about me. That even the mistakes can feel like, you know, feeling about talking about mistakes. When I was here for the first time in the States, I bought a BMW. That was a dumb thing. I had only $10,000 to my name, and I think I spent 5,000 on a 325 BMW, and that was a dumb thing to do. But yeah, thank you so much.
I hope that you were able to glean some gems from our conversation and will join me next time for a new guest. Please like and subscribe to hear more, share with friends far and wide, and feel free to text me with questions or any thoughts you had. I'm grateful for you and look forward to connecting, sending lots of love your way. If you liked what you heard today and are interested in expanding your perspective on living solo, I highly recommend the Solo Podcast by Dr. Peter McGraw. How Do You Single is produced, edited, and designed by me, Trisha Blosser. Special thanks to my guest, Ramiro Lynch.